Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of TechPixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And I am going fly solo. It's a fly solo podcast. I'm going solo this week on the podcast to talk to you about something that's really near and dear to my heart. And also really just to take a break from the interviews for a while and really connect with you. Me and you connecting either through the video that you might be watching or through the audio that you might be listening to. One of the major adventures, journeys, trips, discoveries I've been on over the last 4 years of building TechPixies has been very much around money mindset. And I can say hand over heart, when I started TechPixies back in 2015 as a trial project, I had zero money whatsoever to build the business. I applied for a grant. That's how we got started. And then when I wanted to grow it in 2018, 2019, I had zero money. And I reached out to investors and raised some money to then grow the business. We sort of rode the wave, if you will, of COVID, in the sense that a lot of people were home. A lot of people wanted to learn something. They didn't want to just be sitting at home doing nothing. And so we had a lot of people switching out of careers. They were being made redundant, or they were rediscovering themselves. And so we grew massively during that period of time. And we generated £1 million in 2 years. And it was a huge learning curve for me. I hired a lot of people. And then when the economy came back, I had to let a lot of people go, which was really hard for me. So I've been on this roller coaster journey for all of the years that I have been doing TechPixies. And I've openly shared this journey on the podcast in the past, but it's been a while since I've sort of talked about money mindset, why it matters, and some of the tools that I've used over the years to help me navigate that journey. So I thought I'd come on and share some of those tools and also give you a preview, more importantly, of our Money Mindset Masterclass. We are running our Money Mindset Masterclass coming up here on the 22nd of May. Now, if you're watching this or listening to this and you're listening to it on it's past that date, you can probably grab the recording. So if you go to techpixies.com/money mindset, you'll be able to sign up for our training. And if you've missed the training live, you can then grab the recording. And I'm going to go through really the framework of that program so you know what you're buying. We've priced it at a really reasonable price. So it's £27 to show up live without getting the recording. It's £47 to show up live and get the recording, or just get the recording if you can't show up live. And it's £67 to do a money mindset reset with me and get the recording and the live training. So we've really priced it at a very reasonable price. You can also be rest assured that 100% of the proceeds from this masterclass support our Partners in Believing Fund. So what's our Partners in Believing Fund? It supports women who are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, or who might be from a background that's a BAME, which is Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, or LGBTQ+, or over the age of 60. So we have about 45% of the women in our program that come from those backgrounds, and we're able to help them through our programs, through our Partners in Believing Fund. So, if you invest in this Money Mindset Masterclass for yourself, you're also investing in our incredible community and supporting the women that really benefit from that investment. So thank you. All right. So in the Money Mindset Masterclass, I go through 5 things. The first thing I talk about is your current money mindset story, right? A lot of people are carrying around old stories about money that they've carried for a very, very long time. And it might be because of experiences they've had. It might be because of things people have said to them. It might be something that their parents said to them, like a lot of us in our 40s like to blame our parents for all our problems. Their problems and their perspectives came from their parents. So it's a generational thing. And, the key is that we develop our own belief system and not blame anyone else for it, right? We understand where our beliefs came from, and we don't blame anybody for those beliefs. We then decide if we want to continue with those beliefs, and then we want to change those beliefs. So the writing your money story is really important. And it was one of the first things that I learned to do when I was studying money mindset. I've been studying it for 4 years. And I've read all sorts of books about it. And I'll mention a couple of the books here. And of course, anyone who joins the masterclass gets the full list of books that I've read. And I'll talk about those in a second. So the old story, the I hate money story, it's really where you want to understand all the current perceptions you have around money. And you want to really identify the thoughts and where they came from. And then once you've done that, it just opens up the possibility to ask yourself, like, do I want to believe this anymore? Is this what I want to carry with me going forwards? I shared very intimately in our stories today so it's the 20th of May. So if you've missed our stories, you've missed the story. But I shared intimately on there what crafted my money mindset. And really my money mindset comes from being raised in a neighborhood. When I was about fourth grade, we moved from the city. We lived in Denver. We moved to the countryside in Colorado. Beautiful place to live. And I grew up running around in the woods, and I loved living in the countryside. But when we moved, we lived in a neighborhood that was very secluded, and like you couldn't get into the neighborhood unless you went through armed guards. Like it was that sort of neighborhood. It was safe, and it was, I could run around and do all the things I wanted to do. But then in terms of going to the local school, where the local average income was 1/3 of the national average, it was a big difference. So I really stood out in that school. And I never felt super comfortable in that school because the kids in that school knew where I lived. And, they had a perception of people who lived in that sort of neighborhood. And I never really fit in. And it was difficult for me. And I'm glad that I went to that school. I'm glad I lived in that neighborhood. I'm glad that I did all of those things. But at the time, as a teenager, it can be really tough. And so my relationship with money was really sort of embarrassment. I was embarrassed by it. I was embarrassed to live where I lived, and that I'm a teenager, right? So teenagers, that's what teenagers, they have their own perceptions and all those things. So that was my money mindset story. And what I've learned over time is if you carry an old story like that, like I'm embarrassed by money, or money is evil, the root of all evil. You can hear that phrase, money is the root of all evil. You will adopt that and you'll believe it. So, thoughts become things. And we know thoughts create feelings and emotions create over and over again, create a belief system. You make decisions and take actions from that belief system. And so, when you when you carry around an old story about money, it really writes your future relationships with money. And so this is something I definitely had to, the very first thought I had to rewrite when I became a neurocoach. And neurocoaching is basically combining neuroscience with coaching, right? So what do we know about neuroscience is that we have plasticity in our brains, and we can change the way that our brains function and think by the things that we say to ourselves, how we say it to ourselves, what we say to ourselves, and the frequency of saying it to ourselves. So a big part of shifting your mindset is shifting your perspective, and then making sure that your brain believes that perspective. So when I started doing neurocoaching training, which was back in 2020, my company exploded. We had 117 women on a one cohort come in in April of 2020, which ironically is like just 4 years and a bit ago. When I suddenly realized I had to really work on money mindset, because I had to really shift my perspective. In fact, the shift that I made came right before we blew up in terms of we grew really, really fast, really in a really short period of time. And I worked with a coach to make the shift. And the shift that I made was the sentence, "I'm embarrassed by money." And I rewrote that story by saying, I'm proud of what I can do with money, right? Women with money can change the world. And I gave all sorts of examples to myself of women who had money who changed the world. And I'll talk about some of the books that helped me to really change my perspective on what a woman with money could do. And so I rewrote my story, and I started with the first sentence, which is, "I'm embarrassed by money," and I turned it into, "Women with money, do good in the world." Sarah Blakely has a very famous quote where she says, "Money only makes you more of what you already are," right? If you're a greedy, she says, like, if you're a greedy bastard, and you get money, you're going to be a bigger greedy bastard, right? And if you're generous and kind and you get money, you're going to be even more generous and kind. And that was a really beautiful perspective for me. And so, when I built my money mindset, my new money mindset story, it was based on evidence from people like Sarah Blakely, who built billion-dollar businesses and stayed good people, right? And I've convinced myself that it was possible to be financially successful and also be a good person, and that I could be proud of that because of the work that I could do in the world. And then I started imagining all the amazing things I could do in the world. Like invest in women's health and invest in women's businesses. And these are things that I still really want to do. Brain health, breast health, very important to me. I've had too many of my friends die of breast cancer way too young, leaving children behind. It's very important to me to invest in women's health. And then also, I care about the brain, the human brain, and particularly the women's brain, because I've been working with lots of women and helping reshape their brains and rework their brains and repattern those subconscious thoughts. And I see the power of it. And so brain health I see is hugely important. So I started imagining all the things that I could do with the money that I attracted into my life. And that was also something that I put into my vision statement. And I have a very clear vision statement about what I want to do with the money when it comes, And so two things here we're talking about is a vision statement, and also, and that this is really what the next part is. So we have an idea of how we feel about money, and then we rewrite that. So we have the I hate money statement, which is where most people come into working with me. They have not a very great relationship with money. And then we go to the I love money statement. And I remember this story that my mentor told me once, and I'm very excited because I get to go spend some time with her in person. I've only met her once before; it's all been done virtually, and I get to meet her for a second time. And I've been preparing for this meeting for definitely the last 2 months. As it's getting closer and closer, I'm preparing for this meeting. But one of the stories that she tells when she was very early on in her journey with money mindset. And she's now in her 70s. So, she started this journey a while ago. So I think probably, she started her journey with money mindset, maybe 25 or so years ago. And she said she went to a talk. It was another minister who was giving a talk, and she was a pastor at the time. So might have even been 40 or so years ago. And she goes to this talk, and she was really excited to be there. She sat in the front row. And the guy who was giving the talk walked out on stage, and he had a wad of money in his hands, like dollar bills, which of course we don't really have anymore because everything's gone plastic. But he has all these dollars in his hands, and he starts kissing it. He goes, I just love money. I just love money. And he just was waiting for the reaction from the crowd. And he got the reaction. They were not very excited about the way he was talking about money. And she said in that moment, her heart sank. Here she had made this huge effort to be there, to get a front row seat, to listen to what this guy had to say. And he walked out kissing money. And she's a pastor. And, at the time she believed what a lot of people believe in the Christian faith. And we talked about that this morning in the group that I run. We have a Mindset Monday meeting every Monday. And I've been doing a series on a book that we've been reading. And I did some Q&A today. And one of the questions came from someone who grew up in a Christian background. I grew up in a Christian background. If you grew up in a Christian background, you will know that there is a verse in the Bible that is referred to a lot. And it says money is the root of all evil. And it also says you cannot love God and money. And so there's another part of the church which has an abundance message, which if you came out of a fundamentalist Christian background, that abundance message was poo-pooed. Yet it's sort of ironic because the church does ask you for a tithe, and actually the more you make, the more the church gets. So actually they should be promoting abundance, because the church does really good work in the community. But if you're not making any money, they can't take any money. Anyway, I grew up as a Christian. I still am a Christian. I came into the work that I do very much from my Christian faith. Now that's changed over dramatically changed. I'm not a fundamentalist Christian. I'm not an evangelical Christian. I am definitely more of probably what you would describe as it's beyond non-denominational, but it's that sort of, I appreciate and understand the world's religions, and I look for and try and connect, just like my mentor does, the underlying messages in those religions. And that's why at TechPixies, I work with women from all different religious backgrounds, women with no religious backgrounds, women with deep religious backgrounds. It doesn't really matter where you come from. What matters is where you're going, and how you think directs where you're going. So what we want to do is we want to shift that I hate money story, or the negative feelings about money, into a positive I love money story. So going back to the story, he comes out, he kisses the money, and she's really upset. She just can't believe she's paid for this. And now she's thinking that's really unspiritual. And he goes, I bet some of you are thinking that that's a little bit unspiritual. And she's like, what? He knows what I'm thinking. And he said, what if I came out with my grandchild? What if I came out with my grandson? I gave him a kiss on the cheek and I said, don't you just love my grandson? He's so cute. Which, of course, every time she tells that story now, I sort of think, well, in today's context, it could be, totally misconstrued. But let's just imagine that he comes out with, his puppy or his child and just gives him a big hug. And I love my child. I love my puppy. And it's this idea that we don't have a reaction to that. We don't have a visceral reaction to someone hugging their child or kissing their puppy, or, we see that as love. And his point was your perception of who I was changed based on what I was kissing, what I was hugging, what I was loving. And this is true. We have perceptions that are built up over lots and lots of years and lots of experiences, and your perception is going to be based on those things. And unless you change your perception, it's going to be the guiding force in your life, if that makes sense. So the first thing we do in the Money Mindset Masterclass is we rewrite the old story. And so we learn 3 words that really help make that shift. So if you want to know those 3 words, come to the Money Mindset Masterclass. All right. So then the second thing that I get people to do is lean into gratitude, right? Really start to understand, what am I grateful for in my life? Because grateful people see the world differently than people who are always, frustrated and angry and upset, right? So we want to be leaning into gratitude. And there's lots of different ways to lean into gratitude. I have a 1-line-a-day journal, and every day I write in the 1-line-a-day journal the things that I'm grateful for that day, the things that I'm proud of that day. It generates a higher vibrational state, right? You get more energy when you think about the things you're grateful for than when you think about all the problems you're facing. And you can be grateful in the challenges you're having, right? There's 3 levels of gratitude. Like, I'll be grateful when that invoice gets paid, or I'll be grateful when I get that job, or I'll be grateful, when we sell our house. That's a grateful for something in the future. Then there's I'm grateful for, right? Like, I'm grateful for the house I live in. I'm grateful for the car I have. I'm grateful that I've got food in the fridge. I'm grateful for my relationships. And like, we've got that grateful for. And then the third one is grateful in. And this is the hardest one for people to get their heads wrapped around. But this is when you go through a challenge or a circumstance, or you have a situation that you would not otherwise choose. It might be breast cancer. It might be divorce. It might be losing someone you love. It could be a whole range of things. It could be going bankrupt. It could be losing your company. There's so many things it could be. The idea here is that we find the things that we're grateful in, even if those are challenging, right? So if you've been following the podcast, you know my story. If this is your first time listening to it, I gave you a whistle stop tour of the first 5 minutes of the podcast. But the thing that I said was, we grew massively. So from 2020, probably from 2015 to 2019, we generated like 50 to 100,000 a year, like pretty much every year. Then in 2020, I did this work, and we went up and had a year that was over 400,000. And then we had a year that was over 600,000. And then I learned a very valuable lesson. There's a difference between how much you make and how much profit you have, right? I learned a big lesson between revenue and profit. Even though we had all this revenue, we didn't have any profit. And so we then almost, the company almost failed in October 2021. I had to completely rebuild the company in 2022, which included taking myself off salary. and then putting myself back on salary in 2023 when we were able to get to a stable place. And I have made every mistake that you can make with money. So I'm very highly skilled and authoritative in this place, which is why I think it's good for me to talk about it. And I wasn't able to talk about it as strongly as I am able to talk about it now, because I hadn't gone through the ringer yet. And I feel like I'm coming out the other side of it, so I can start to really talk about this with a perspective of someone who knows what it's like to almost lose everything. And I think if I had not found the money mindset training that I found, and if I hadn't found and when I say found, it's, it's been lots of different people from different courses and books and things that have helped me to get to where I am now. But if I hadn't gone on that journey of discovery, I wouldn't have been able to turn my business around. And that was really important. And it's important for you to know that too, because if you don't work on your money mindset, you can't change it. So I think that what we get into as the sort of second part of the Money Mindset Masterclass is gratitude, and really leaning into what are the things that I'm grateful for, what are the things I'm grateful in, and really being able to identify that. And then the third step that we go into in the Money Mindset Masterclass is the Money Mindset Action Plan, right? Einstein said we can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So if you've got money problems, there's a certain way that you've been thinking. You've got to think differently to get out of those problems. And that's exactly what I had to learn. So that's where I teach something called the Brave Thinking Activation Process. I've been certified in this, and and it's a really fun exercise to do. You need other people to do it with, which is why we do it in the Money Mindset Masterclass, because we can do breakout rooms. We can work energetically with other people to source ideas. But you're sourcing ideas for what could I do to, move myself forward financially. And you come up with 20 ideas. You select the ideas that you're the most excited about. You do it with other people, so you don't discredit any of the ideas. You take them all in, you write them all down. You sort them into your top 3. Like, these are the 3 ideas that light me up the most. We don't lean into the limitations and all the reasons we can't do it. And we schedule time, and we serve that time. So we schedule a 5-minute power move today to call someone, to email someone, to do a social media post. And then, we actually do it, right? So that's the process in a nutshell, the 5 S's: source, select, sort, schedule, serve. But we go into a lot more detail and actually do it in the Money Mindset Masterclass. So I'd really encourage you to come along for that. And then in step 4, this is where we create your money mindset brain prime. So brain priming is leveraging the power of your neuroplasticity to change the way that you think. And so in the Money Mindset Brain Prime, we identify the thought we want to change, just like I identify the thought I'm embarrassed by money, and we rewrite it, and we give the brain evidence, that the way that we want to believe or think is true. We feed it evidence. That's why, just pointing out here, if you ever meet someone who's on an extreme political spectrum or who's on an extreme religious spectrum, they have been fed over and over and over and over the same words, the same lines, the same sentences, and they repeat it over and over in their heads. And the people they spend time with repeat it over and over in their heads. That's why they're so strong on what they believe. So if you speak to a fundamentalist Christian, for example, or any fundamentalist religious person that has indoctrinated themselves in a particular way of thinking, they will believe that way of thinking, and you will not be able to change their mind. So you shouldn't even try, because there's nothing you can do to change their mind when they are so politically entrenched or they are so religiously entrenched, which is one of the reasons why I just don't talk about religion and politics, because it's not fun for me, right? I'm not here to say this is, this is right and this is wrong and you're right and you're wrong. I have my own beliefs. But what I do know about the brain is your brain will believe whatever you tell yourself over and over again. So if you don't like what's going on in your life, you have to look at what you're telling yourself over and over again, and you have to make a conscious effort to change it. And you might have to take yourself out of environments where it's contrary thoughts are being said, right? So I have had to change things that I do in order to protect my mindset. So What the reason that I bring up the brain prime part is because I needed evidence for myself that women with money could do good in the world. And so I read a whole bunch of books about really successful women who've done incredible things in the world. So I'm just going to read off some of the books. Now I have my Money Mindset reading list, which you get when you join the Money Mindset Masterclass. These are books that women have written who've been very successful and who I have really loved reading about their stories. So Self-Made is actually a Netflix series, which is about Madam C.J. Walker. So the first female self-made millionaire in the United States. Now, she was a Black woman, which I think is super important and significant because she was the first self-made millionaire female in the United States. And then you have Meant for More, which is by Lisa Sasevich. She's Jewish. You have I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. So she's Muslim. And then you have Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima. She was adopted. She was told she was overweight. She'd never make it in the makeup industry. She's a Christian. She sold her business to L'Oreal for $1 billion. And then you have the book Let It Go by Dame Stephanie Shirley. She escaped the Nazis. She was Jewish. She went on to build went on to build a $3 billion business or pound business in the 1960s. I mean, she started it in the 1960s. She built it from her kitchen table while raising a child with severe autism. And she had her own mental breakdown in the process. Of course, J.K. Rowling, I might not agree with her opinion on trans people, but I do respect the fact that she came from being a single mom to writing one of the best selling fiction series ever in the world while she was on food stamps. The Year of Yes, Shonda Rhimes, Black single mom of 3. She wrote her book. It's About Damn Time. Arlen Hamilton, she's Black, she's a lesbian, and she's built a venture capital company. She built it while she was living in her car in a hotel parking lot. Now, these are women from all different backgrounds who have been able to create very successful businesses and who've been able to make the world a better place. And I read all of these books and I was inspired by all these books. And another book that I would absolutely add to this is Rachel Rogers, We Should All Be Millionaires. It's a brilliant book. Lots of stats in there. And so I make the argument in the Money Mindset Masterclass that women with money do good in the world. And if we believe that, we will be more comfortable making money. And so, and valuing ourselves properly, etc. So those books, I would highly recommend you all read them. And they're from women from all different backgrounds, Christian backgrounds, Jewish backgrounds, Muslim backgrounds, Black backgrounds, white backgrounds, Asian backgrounds. And I think it's important that we know that there's evidence in the world that you can be a woman making money and you can do good in this world as a result, that money is not evil, and that you can love God, the universe, infinite intelligence, the world, and generate income as well that's expansive for yourself, for your family, and those around you. So that's what we talk about in depth in the Money Mindset Masterclass. The Money Mindset Masterclass is 4 hours long. We do 2 hours on Wednesday, the 22nd of May, and we do 2 hours in June. And it gives you a couple weeks to actually apply the money mindset and see the shifts that can even happen in a short period of time. And then really the fifth step that we do in the Money Mindset Masterclass is make a decision to become financially independent, to commit to money mindset growth, to invest in yourself, to build the business that you want to build, to create the financial independence that you want to create. Decision is the most powerful move you can make. It's if you don't make a decision that you're going to change things, nothing will change, right? So we have to make a decision. And until there is a decision, right, there's a chance to draw back. There's hesitancy. There's inefficiency, right? This is from the book that was written by a man who climbed Mount Everest. And he was trying to decide, should I go? Should I not go? Should I go? Should I not go? He was invited 3 times to go up to the top of Mount Everest. And finally, on the 3rd time, he said yes. And it was his trail that helped them get to the summit Mount Everest. But he said no twice because he was indecisive. And so in his book that he wrote, he said, until one makes a decision, there's always ineffectiveness. And so we want to make a decision that becoming financially independent is important for us, that we deserve to become financially independent, right? We have all of the skills in this, and we've got all of the opportunities in this world. Opportunities our mothers did not have, opportunities our grandmothers did not have, opportunities that generations before us did not have. We have all the opportunities to do this. So it's our decision as to whether or not we want to do it. And I would highly encourage you to make the decision to become financially independent. You might make the decision and find that you don't get the results right away. So I want to also leave you with one thing to remember, and that's the story of the bamboo. The Chinese bamboo, legend has it that it grows 1 inch in year 1, 1 inch in year 2, 1 inch in year 3, 1 inch in year 4, 1 inch in year 5. It just sort of slowly and slowly and slowly grows. What's happening underneath the bamboo is this thing called a rhizome and the root system. So the rhizome and the root system are really grounding themselves deep in the ground. And that means that when it gets to year 6, the bamboo can shoot up, anywhere from 40 to 60 feet. And it will shoot up in a very short period of time. And so all that work that it was doing over those 5 years was setting the foundation for what it was to become. So I want you to know this. Just because you decide I want to have financial independence does not mean that tomorrow you're going to get the job that's going to give it to you. It might happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. It does. Sometimes it absolutely does happen. But what it does do is set in motion the things that will bring about what you would love. And, one of my mentors says, the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The next best time to plant an oak tree is now, right? But an oak tree needs certain conditions to grow in, right? Just because an acorn drops onto the ground does not mean it's going to turn into a mighty oak tree. It needs soil, it needs sunlight, it needs water, it needs a good environment, not too much shade. It needs, there's lots of things that it needs in order to thrive. So we're like the oak tree, right? We're like the bamboo. We take time to mature and grow. So just bear in mind that when you make the decision to become financially independent, you may not immediately become financially independent, right? You might not go win the lottery tomorrow, right? And that, I would argue, is not the best way to become financially independent, because a lot of people, the statistics are that if you win the lottery, you are more likely to lose everything you've won, including your life, than you are to actually thrive. And the reason for that is when someone wins the lottery, they have not established in themselves a new way of thinking, and they don't believe they deserve it. And then they give it away, it's stolen away, they lose it all. So I really want you to think it's not winning the lottery that's going to get me financially independent. It's not marrying a partner that's got money that's going to get me financially independent. It's not, the inheritance that I may or may not receive from my parents that's going to make me financially independent. I have the power within me to become financially independent. And even if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, but I can't leave my home, I'm in a wheelchair, I've got lots of challenges, I've got children that are autistic. I have women in my community that have all of those things, and they are financially independent now. And they've come through our program, they've created a life that they love, and they are able to generate income from their homes with all of the challenges that they've got. So, really the challenges can be overcome with the mind and the way that you think about things. I can say that with every being of my soul, because I know it, and I know these women intimately and how hard they've worked to change the way that they think in order to bring about more abundance in their life. And I want you to know that that abundance goes beyond them. It benefits their children, and it will benefit their children's children, because their children will grow up with a completely different perspective than they had growing up. So just wanted to say hi. If you're new to listening to TechPixies, you got me as a fly solo on the podcast. Normally I have a lot of our students telling their stories of success, but I wanted to come on here and just share this sort of more personal side of my story and invite you to come to our Money Mindset Masterclass. So go to techpixies.com/money mindset if you're interested in our program. If you'd like to get the replay, or if you'd like to have a one-on-one with me, those options are all there. And I'd love to support you in shifting your mindset, in making a decision to become financially independent, making a decision to empower yourself So if you have any questions, email us at support@techpixies.com. And I'm so grateful that you're here. And I wish you the best week ahead. Bye for now.